Hey, good morning and welcome to Amplified Wellness Podcast. I'm Chris Barnes. Today I have two special guests. It's the first time I've had dual guests on at the one time. I'd like to welcome Tah&Kole Whitty all the way from beautiful, warm Austin, Texas. Tah&Kole, how are you doing?
Awesome to be here.
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks for having us, man.
Thank you so much. I recently met Tah in Austin, Texas when I attended Paleo Effects, and you were on the keynote for a consciousness seminar there, which I'd like to get into shortly as well. But to get started, just to give our listeners a little insight. So you both have a collective background. You work together helping so many people, but Tah, you in particular have a background in emergency medicine. Is that correct?
Yeah, emergency nursing. I practiced nursing for 25 years. 23 of those years I worked emergency rooms all over New York City. I worked at 10 different hospitals in New York City, dealing with trauma, dealing with all kinds of wild stuff, psychiatry.
Night shifts, no less.
And I worked on the night shift. So I have a tremendous amount of experience with physical and emotional trauma and drama.
And drama. Always plenty of drama, I can imagine.
Yeah, lots of it, man.
Yeah. And Cole, your background as well. So do you have a background in trauma and addiction therapy also?
Exactly. So therapy is therapy for the sake of calling it therapy. No, I'm not a licensed therapist. And I ended up in a coma when I was 17 from a drug overdose, GHB. And from there, I just started working with people and understanding addiction, because from that happening, I got thrust into the world, the idea of once an addict, always an addict. And though it had its purpose at that time, and I was speaking on internationally, actually, helping the UN in Kosovo. This is after the war. We're talking early 2000s. And as I learned about substances, it created a new ideology that was very disempowering, in my opinion. And this is, of course, I'm always speaking from my perspective, my opinion. And it wasn't until, so I started working with youth at that point. So we're talking 17, 18 years of being around trauma, of understanding, seeing the similarities in addiction of what I perceived as causing it. And that we were disempowering people by saying once an addict, always an addict, because we were once babies, and we don't still say I'm a recovering baby, Yeah. So for me, it was like the attachment things. So that kicked me into it. And then I got into fitness and wellness and personal trainer, I was instructor of the year for Beachbody, the biggest fitness company in the United States, got really active into it. And it still wasn't solving the why. Right? Like, why are people emotionally eating? What's going on? And that's when we started to really bring together with our experiences, because he was a personal trainer also, of the why. Instead of, okay, we can get people to lose fat. Okay, I can get people to not take a substance. And then I had to do a lot of reframing around that whole idea as I started to get involved in more shamanic Andean practices in Peru, where they use psychedelic plants to help with PTSD, trauma, that kind of thing. So it's a very long story. So that's like kind of the shortest version. That's really when we came together to start looking at how do we teach this? Like the healing I did in 9 years, because I had medical conditions, a long list as well. It took me 9 years. How can we help people in fractions of the time now that we are reverse engineering that? So that kind of like brought us together as far as perspective. And we're both people watchers. We're both like equally fascinated by human development.
It's fascinating. And so this model that you have now, is this the biointegration therapy model that you're speaking of?
Yes. It is. It's not a therapy. It's a modality. It's a way of seeing yourself and how you're affected, and your body, your psyche, and every part of your human organism is affected by the circumstances inside and outside of you. So we base our work on the premise that the human brain utilizes about 20 to 25% of your body's resources at rest. And when you're stressed and when you're active, that can go up to 50, 60% of your body's resources being used by 2% of your body's weight. So when you can start to unhinge yourself from all the constructs and all of the things that are running in the background like apps, your body can actually start to relax, and it can rejuvenate itself. It can actually rest. It can heal itself. But we have so many things going on in the world, so much multitasking, so many different things that we're dealing with.
Just a lot of noise.
There's a lot of noise. There's religion, there's government, there's nationality, there's ethnicity, there's race, there's all of these different things.
Products and there's
all this stuff running, and it's keeping the brain very occupied, and it doesn't let the rest of the body catch up. So what we're doing with people is getting them to integrate their experience and actually know where they are from a standpoint of seeing themselves in the matrix of things, if you want to call it that. It's seeing themselves and knowing how to unhinge themselves from things that they've been attached to unwittingly and lean into the things that they want to be, connected to by choice. And that allows the human physical organism to relax. So we have this idea that our society has a hierarchy, and we hold spirituality at the highest place, mentality right beneath that. We have our social constructs, our societal constructs beneath that, and then the body is like underneath that. And what we do is we turn that hierarchy on the side to a horizontal plane, and we bring them all together, right, in the same esteem for a complete human experience. It's a complete human being. So you're honoring your body, your mind, your spirit, your social interactions. You're honoring all of that at the same capacity. You're not putting one above any other part. And it's an integration of the biology with all of those other parts.
And sometimes that takes a disintegration. Well, not sometimes. It always requires a disintegration of beliefs and these constructs and the imprint they have on us, because guilt, shame, some of these devices that we all get taught become manipulative factors, and that impacts your physiology because of hormone release, because that changes your gene expression. It impacts everything. So it's that we're really looking to help people disintegrate or deconstruct these ideas and determine what's theirs, what functions for them, and what's kind of pushing and poking at them in a way that it's not even what they believe, it's what someone else told them, or what society told them, or family, or whatever.
And it allows the individual to make an empowered choice. And that's what we're about, having an empowered choice as an individual human being, so that you know what you're getting yourself into, and supporting each other, learning how to support other human beings in their empowered choices without cutting them down or forcing them into a hole and making them perform a certain way. When we force human beings to perform a certain way, it causes the body to be uneasy, dis-ease, diseased, hospital, dead, that type of stuff. So, we're really interested in empowerment of the individual human being as a collective. When we're all empowered together and we can make decisions together because we want to, not because we're forced to, it changes the dynamic of everything. We now have the technology to move forward in this world and do really amazing things. And the evolution of the human being took us millions of years to get here. And our technology in the past 200 years, the past 50 years, the past 20 years has exponentiated ridiculously. And the human physiology isn't really able to keep up with it. And we're still doing things according to these old paradigms, these old constructs, these old societal ways of living, these old family structures, these old governmental structures.
It's like a new technology trying to exist in an industrial revolution period.
It doesn't work. So we've got to change how we are interacting with each other and with our technology in order for us to move forward in this world. So that's what we're excited about, helping people integrate. We're into this, man, really into it.
It's fascinating, and you speak about those, I guess, subconscious apps that are playing in people's minds, affecting their behavior, their stress levels, and just how they thrive in this everyday life. How do we change those belief systems and I guess for people that don't even know that they're underlying patterns that are rolling, how do you peel those layers back with this type of program?
It's one at a time, and that's what gets tricky is when you're noticing that your energy levels are low, and it doesn't feel like you're stressed in your mind, physiologically, you can be very stressed because your idea of security is being compromised. There's some sort of threat, physically, emotionally, and because it's subconscious and we are guided predominantly in our reactionary state by a subconscious patterning, past experiences, childhood development, we don't know what it is. So it starts by asking yourself questions. And starting in September, we're actually launching a almost like journaling system to start asking yourself these questions and asking your body these questions. Right now, we're doing something called the Naked Truth Challenge. It's 7 days that every day you answer questions, and then you say it in front of the mirror. And then the third part of it is you actually take all your clothes off, face yourself with no clothes on, and tell the question, tell your answer, and see how you feel where you feel it.
And how your body responds.
Yes. And then you can really start to see if some of the stories are even yours. You may be really hard on yourself and think that, oh, well, I take care of my body, I give it good food. And the thing is, you're only doing it from a almost like type A personality versus because you love yourself. And that differentiation is the difference between migraine, stomach aches, gallbladder issues, kidney problems, whatever, because you still aren't doing things out of love. So for us, it's first asking yourself the question. So now we're bringing for access for more people, the questions we've been asking clients, because until you get honest with yourself, nothing you do is authentic. It may be genuine, but it cannot be authentic if you haven't first been authentic and honest with yourself.
That self-honesty, radical self-honesty is a big part of what we help people explore. And it's something that I've found, triaging thousands of people in ERs in New York City, is that people are not honest with themselves. They're I'm taking my medicine, I'm doing this, and my wife, this, that. Oh, do you like your wife? What do you mean, do I like my wife? Of course I like my wife. And my wife sucks. And she's doing this. But wait, do you like your wife? Of course I love my wife. I know you love your wife. Do you like your wife? And people have difficulty actually seeing that they're in this situation because they've been, you're married, you're supposed to like and you're supposed to tell people
or your kid,
that you like this, or your kid.
Or
Some
your
people,
parents.
People don't like their family members. And that's one of the things that people come to us with all the time is they do not jive with their family members. They don't jive with their family members. They don't jive with the place they live. They don't jive with the place they work or their home. They don't sit well with it, and it affects the human body. It affects the organism. So being honest with yourself is to answer your question,
Step
is the
one.
first step. Is learning to be honest with yourself and having a support system of people or a person around you that can actually absorb the story, that can listen to it without any bias, without any judgment, without, oh man, how could you say that about your mom? No, we just, hey man, I get it.
First we have to get honest.
Let it out. And so you can cry or you can yell or whatever, and you can be yourself and let the emotions out of your body that you've been holding. And once we get to that spot, we can start to decipher everything else, because the body doesn't lie. When you speak about something, when you're doing the Naked Truth Challenge and you're standing in front of the mirror, there's a question that says, do you like your mother? And if you ask yourself, do I like my mother? And you go, yeah, I like my mother, right? Your body's not going to lie. Or, yeah, I like my mother. Or you feel some tension in your belly. You'll feel it. And you may see it. And this, there have been some people that have come to us. We had this is something that we implement with every client that we have. Okay. And we used to have something called the Seeing Yourself questionnaire, which is a very shortened version of this. And there were people that would do this, the Seeing Yourself questionnaire, and be like, I don't need you guys anymore. I figured out everything. And that's what we want. We want people to be able to figure this stuff out and really see themselves, because this is the most important part. You can go to the doctor, you can go to the therapist, you can go to all this stuff, and you can still be lying to yourself and applying societal constructs to how you should perform as opposed to how you really want to perform, how you really feel connected to living. And if you still can't do it, you got kids, you can't just throw your kids to the side. I mean, you could. There are ramifications that come with that. But, being able to say, well, this is how I really feel, in witness of yourself and in witness of another person, allows the human organism to relax. And once you can relax, it can let go of the tension that it's holding.
Mm.
And things start to loosen up, and it becomes really, really interesting when people start falling off medications, not having to go to the doctor, not having pain. It's awesome, man.
Our number one thing is we don't treat sick people. We
No,
don't
we
work
don't.
with sick people.
Mm.
We see dysfunction. We don't see right or wrong. If someone comes to me because they want to lose fat, I'm not saying, okay, here, we need to put you on this calorie plan or put you on a keto type diet or whatever. My question is, well, why? What's wrong with you now? What do you perceive as problematic? And when you get to why someone is where they is, when you get to why it's impacting someone, like if I have a mom who wants to take her kids to a theme park and it crushes her that she can't ride the rides, it's not actually that she has a problem with her weight. Her weight, though, is getting in the way of connection. So where our work then lies is getting honest with what connection does for her. And when you solidify the why, the weight falls off, right? Because there is nothing wrong with you. There's not anything wrong with anyone listening right now. There just may be things in the way of you experiencing what you want to experience. That could be health crisis. That could be relationship things. And it's like, we're here to help you get radically honest so that you can clear the path. You're still going to have to be the one to clear the path. I'm not going to be the one to come there and, move your mother out.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess for enough money, I would.
It's all about your why, and what are you doing with that why? There's the what if and what happens when. We can and having support in that.
Yeah.
That's a very important thing. Is us as human beings, we need support. We need to support each other. And need was a word that I stayed away from for a long time. I need people in my life, and I want them in my life. I don't need anybody. I don't need you. I don't need, we need each other. And, this idea of separation is part of the nonsense that keeps us functioning the way we do. The idea that we should be separated by finance, separated by race, separated by country, separated by gender. All of these separations keep us from connecting with each other. And when we are connected and we're cohesive, there's nothing that can get in the way of us expanding as a race of beings on this planet. As beings, as the planet, we are the planet, I'm excited.
No, it's fabulous. I could sit here and just listen to that all day. It's really fascinating what you say about not being true to yourself, because I see it in my everyday life between family members in my circle as well, just not communicating properly and obviously not being true to themselves about their feelings. If they're sad, they're angry, or they're just not happy with the situation, rather than expressing that and addressing it to an individual, they kind of just zip it and walk away, and it stews and ferments in there and actually makes like a load more stress on them. Yeah. So
there's cultural considerations. When we're talking to someone, part of the questions is also, where did you come from? Because a lot of the ideas may be yours because of association, not necessarily yours in belief. And, in the US, and it's like this everywhere you go in every culture, where you come from impacts greatly how you react or respond to situations. If you're from the South in the US, there are certain rules, right? That you're not supposed to say it. It's not nice and it's not appropriate. Or if someone makes you dinner, you eat it. And there's a lot of cultures have these unspoken rules, which means if you act outside of it, you'll be banished, which is the worst case scenario for a human, is to be kicked out of the tribe, kicked out of the community. We've always been taught that you'll die alone, and that's why when loneliness is what's killing people more than anything else on this planet is loneliness and not being connected.
I can definitely vouch for that. And there have been many a case in the hospitals that I worked at that, I was very open and easy to speak to for the people that I worked with, because I wanted them to be comfortable. I didn't want them to have a hard time. It was bad enough they went to hospital. And I've had multiple instances where somebody would be like, listen, can you close the curtain? I want to tell you something. And they'll tell me their darkest secret or their deepest love or whatever, and they just die. because they had nobody to talk to. They were lonely. And we can be around people, and if we're not able to express who we are, what we believe, and how we feel, we are still lonely. And loneliness is the worst thing for us on the planet, and it kills. It really kills. So you can be alone, right, out in the forest and talk to the trees and feel connected. You're not lonely. But if you are with a million people, you're always around folks, and you can't be yourself, your honest, true self, you are lonely. And it is dangerous to be lonely. I am saying this from a place of great experience. 25 years and thousands of people that I've dealt with tons of disease, that are afraid to say things to the people that they love or the people that they don't like.
And I think most people can relate to being in some kind of relationship, whether it's family or partner, where you felt alone together. And I don't think there's a worse feeling than feeling like you don't fit in with the people around you and you're this island. And that is, you can be in New York City, you've got 13 million people around you during the day, and that's not going to change loneliness.
Yes. Yeah. Is it a fear or an egocentric inability to express like one's true self and be yourself? Is it what stops people from being?
It's a unique collaboration of all of those things with every single person. Yeah. And the thing is that the thing that's so tricky with something like loneliness is once you start to feel lonely, you actually start to desire foods that create a different experience of connection with your body. So the only connection you can get is with food, right? When someone proclaims, I could never not eat this food, their connection to the food is maybe, this is only, depends on the person, maybe the only connection they're experiencing, period. Whether it's to the taste buds in their mouth or the feeling in their stomach or the spike of insulin or whatever. Yeah. So it's our first thing with each individual person is, what do you want to be connected to? You may want to be connected to food. And what needs to happen for you to fully connect to food? Or are you mindlessly eating food, which isn't connection? And then you can never fill that void. So with each person, it's very unique into how it's comprised, and yet it's always the same pieces. It's just the way that it's put together are prioritized a little differently. But we find that really everyone's the same.
Yeah. There's this thing that you're special and that you're the only person with this situation, and it's not the case.
You're uniquely messed up.
And to your question about what drives this, in my experience, shame is a device that is used by multiple, just about every construct, every societal construct on the planet is utilizes shame to control people. And when you feel ashamed, right? Shame is the idea that something is wrong with you. Guilt is the idea that you've done something wrong. So if you have an idea that something is wrong with you, your inclination is to hide, because you won't be accepted by the tribe, and then the tribe will kick you out, and then you'll be alone, right? You'll be lonely. And it gives the false idea that you'll be safe, but it's also keeping you hiding. So then it's making you alone anyway. So it's protecting the actual construct, but it's not protecting the individual person. And it's keeping them in a space of loneliness, a cycle of loneliness, and wanting to really speak about it. But we have all sorts of things in our media. You're stupid, you're ugly, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too this, you're too that.
Or if you want to be happy, you need to do this thing or buy this thing or eat this thing.
If you don't have enough money, then you're broke and you're not rich, and people are not going to like you.
And if your credit score is too low, you failed at life, you're no longer credible.
Right. If you don't have enough booty or enough boobs, your pecs are not big enough, your eyebrows are too thick, all of this stuff causes people to be ashamed. And shame is driven by a lot of engines. You're not good enough to get to heaven, right? A lot of religions are driven by this idea that you are not good enough to get to heaven, so you must do these things or God won't love you enough for you to get to heaven. When you get to St. Peter and all of this stuff, all of these religions that have this type of stuff, it's driven by shame, and it causes the human organism to be disrupted, and it causes people to hide.
Same with school, same with jobs,
Mm-hmm.
same with, I mean, all of it. If you even look at the, you know, if you don't get good grades, you won't get into a good college. You won't, and if you don't get into a good college, then you're not going to get a good job. And if you don't get a good job, you won't have insurance and 401k and retirement, and you won't get the house, and no one will love you because you can't support a family. And I mean, it's just, we have so many filters that get built up, so many projections, that anything that disrupts this imagination of what happiness would be in the future, which is the house, the kids, the 401k, insurance, security, then anything that disrupts that, we are, our happiness that most people aren't already experiencing is compromised, which means we'll never experience it.
No,
Yeah,
it gets very, it gets really intricate, and it's an individualized sport. Different people have different parents who have had different circumstances. When you go to different schools, when you have different jobs, you have different neighbors. All of these things influence your idea of how you see yourself and how you are seen. And at the foundation of societal constructs, we have what we call the identity. And your identity is who you believe you are, and then who you believe others believe you are. Others as individuals and others as collectives. And that's where things start to get complicated, because you and I could have a relationship together, and that's our construct, right? And you believe that I am who I am, right? And I want you to know who I think you are. So I try to impress you, or I try to do this. I also have a similar relationship with Kole, and I want her to believe I'm a certain way. But there's a certain way that I am with you that I'm not with her. So I have to kind of dull it down and minimize it when you're both around. And then it's a collective of people that I'm also trying to impress that have a different view of me. And you see how complicated things get? Yeah. And this pulls on the brain. So if you're looking to impress people and do these things, and then you're impressing your religion, and you're impressing your career, and you have your business partner, and the people that you work for, and the people that work for you, and all of this stuff.
No wonder you're exhausted.
You're exhausted. Your brain is being jammed. And then you have your computer open with 77 tabs from different websites, right? And you're doing all this multitasking, right?
And then you open your phone to check a text message, and 10 minutes later realize you're watching cat videos on Facebook. You don't know what happened.
There's a lot of stuff happening.
My life.
There's a lot of stuff happening, and the organism, the physical body, can't keep up. So you have to either build the body up to be able to be resilient enough and strong enough to do, or you have to pull some of these things back, or you can do a combination of the two. And this is what we help people to see.
The human evolution, it's a time that it has to happen. There is a massive shift going on system-wide. We're seeing it all over the world, where people that were functioning and having these big successful business are hitting health crisis. And in this health crisis, it's forcing them to stop, not slow down, stop. And build a relationship with their body, because with how much technology has grown, even in the last 15, 20 years, the physiology can't keep up, and our brain is expanding quickly, our consciousness and our access to information. So now, unless we tap into our instinctual intelligence to know when our physical matter, this matter that our body is made up of, when it needs something, or it's deficient, or it needs support, it can't maintain this processing level that we are constantly having stimulated. So if you aren't proactively doing it right now, I've been telling people there's a new wave happening right now. And if you don't get yourself surfing on the top, you'll be dragged in the undertow, but we're all going. So it's like, where do you want to be?
Yeah. And there's a lot of biohacking going on with enhancements of the human organism. Yes. And we are doing this biohacking, and we are not shifting out of the old moral states, and we're still performing in those places, and it's still causing a strain on the biohacked organism. So as we biohack and we change our DNA's expression and epigenetics and all of this wonderful stuff, it's really important for this honesty to also evolve. If we're going to evolve, and we're going to evolve technologically, and we're evolving alongside it, we have to also evolve our morality and evolve our social interactions with each other. These have to evolve.
Biohacking is cool. Biointegration is key. That's what we always say. It's an incredible way to gain access to your physiology and your biology. And if you don't also integrate all of the other parts of your emotions, of your past, Your body stores its own intelligence, that same intelligence that tells you if it hears a rattle and you're out in the woods, that it could be a rattlesnake. That's reactionary survival things your body's developed. So if we don't team up with this body, it will with immediacy block you out when it gets scared or it gets into fight or flight. And all the conscious work in the world, all the biohacking in the world cannot sustainably override your body's need and necessity to survive.
From an instinctual standpoint, it will not. Your body, when your body is done, it's going to cut everything else out. It's no access. Sorry.
It's incredible. Cole, you mentioned consciousness. How important is it for individuals to grow that level of consciousness to be able to adapt to all these additional stresses in our life today?
I mean, consciousness, that's a whole other conversation in what consciousness means to one person or to another. And the first thing is just awareness, right? So here's an example. Here's Henry, my Chihuahua, for anyone that can't see. He's only about 2 kilos. He's little. So Henry, if I have Henry right here in my face, then all I can see and experience is Henry. So the same applies to a trauma or just whatever is going on in your life. If you're so close to it that you never change your perspective or your perception, it consumes everything. So instead of consciousness, just opening your awareness and expanding what you're seeing, which takes listening to podcasts, reading books, connecting with people outside of your belief structure, because the more aware you become, the more you can actually attune and adjust and shift how you're performing and to see what's in the way of you not enjoying your life. At the end of the day, the only thing that we're here to do is to have fun. And if something's in the way of us having fun, then we need to make some shifts and adjustments, because all the money in the world won't change if we're not having fun. It won't make it fun. Money is nice, right? We all know we can do some fun things with money. Our life started to change when we started having fun, when our financial situation crashed and tanked, because then we had no choice but to we did have a choice. We chose to not focus on what we didn't have and look at the joy and the fun and what we could do that didn't cost money. And then how do we expand that? It was always not focusing on the positive, focusing on expanding what made my body not hurt. Focus on expanding what made me laugh more. Focus on expanding what it looked like to go have fun together versus what do I need to remove or cut. So consciousness is a very deep thing that's like a whole other podcast episode. The first step for me is awareness. And do you want to stay where you are? First of all, that will never happen, because for whichever, something's going to happen to change your trajectory. At what point do you want to be in control of the direction that you're heading versus, even if it's only 1 degree at a time, you'll look back 2 years from now and you will not be in the same place you were. Just reading a little bit more about health, you'll find another podcast or blog that talks about something else that ticks in your head and is like that little cue. If everything in your life is perfect, you don't want anything to change, don't change anything. And unless you are there, know that it is within your power to change anything and everything in your life, including health and whatever else. And that's, again, a whole other podcast of all my medical stuff I had to unravel. Not had to, I chose to not settle in any part of my life.
We can save that one for the next episode.
Right, exactly. That's a whole other thing too.
The way I see things, we are consciousness. We are aware of ourselves. Consciousness is an awareness of the self. Conscious awareness is awareness of yourself and everything around, and that you are everything. And when you can see more of yourself by expanding your perspective outside of your individual human organism and start to share perspectives with other human organisms, you get to see things from a different vantage point. And when you see things from a different vantage point, you can expand beyond your bubble. And when you expand beyond that bubble, your perspective changes and you start to, your body actually starts to settle in that it is interacting with the environment outside of itself. That includes the people, the animals, birds, the trees, the floor, everything. You're interacting with everything. So having that awareness is a shift that can expand infinitely. You know, you can always, and I mean, the way our technology is now, you can jump on Google and find all kinds of stuff out. You Google Yahoo, you can go to the library, you can do whatever you want and expand. There is so much that we can expand into and beyond. And that for me, you know, consciousness is a conversation that can be had for hours and hours. And awareness, like Cole was saying, is the important factor. Is, are you aware of what you're conscious of? You know, if there's a bug walking on your shoulder, you know, you can get scared and brush it off, or you can stop and look and see, is it biting me? You know, what is it doing? You know, there's a difference in your awareness. And how are you interacting with your awareness? Are you becoming responsive or reactive, or a little bit of both, or none? You know, you can tap into all of those things. So we can go on for days.
Yeah, until awareness is present, you really can't grow consciousness in the same way that I think a lot of the woo-woo, you know, like more woo-woo elements talk about. Because in all of our sensation that we experience in this realm is from body. And so until we are aware of what's going on in our body, that is impacting the filter to which we experience everything.
That's super, super insightful and some valuable gems there. For people wanting to find out more about the biointegration and your work, where can we direct them to?
The easiest is Tah&Kole.com, which is TAHK as in kite, OLE, or like, well, we always say it kind of sounds like taco, but that'll just be confusing for a website. That is really for context.
Tah&Kole.com. And if anyone's interested in the 7-day Naked Truth Challenge, it is at
Tah&Kole.com/the naked truth. So you can actually jump on and experience that. It's basically the first module of the program we're developing now for people to really run with it, you know, get clear on where you are. It's like you do with anything in business or whatever else, and yet we don't do it with our internal experience. So if you want to get to where you're going, you have to get radically honest with where you are.
Isn't it at meetmeinthemirror.com?
That also goes there.
Yeah. Meetmeinthemirror.com for that 7-day challenge. Meetmeinthemirror.com, Tah&Kole.com. Instagram is at Tah&Kole. Facebook,
Tah&Kole.
Tah&Kole everything.
Tah&Kole everything.
Yeah, well, Tah&Kole. Yep.
Hopefully we'll see you guys out here in Australia bringing some of that work.
It's been calling for about the last year, so I think it might be time.
Yeah, I got some people in Queensland, in Brisbane, Gold Coast.
Yep.
Got some people in Sydney, some people in Melbourne, some people in Perth, all the way on the other side.
It may be time.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. And I believe I was looking at your website. You do an immersive experience where you go diving with whales.
In 2020. So we're only doing it once as of right now. We have 2 different trips going, and we booked out 4 boats, 2 on each trip. We're going to Tonga. So this is actually to swim with humpbacks. It's in October 2020 because that's when the calves are a bit older and their confidence is higher. And the whole thing is when we go back to that expanding your experience, expansion is what shifts your perception. So if we take you out of everything that you know and we put your physiology into a new environment, and then we're using somatic exercises for somatic awareness to really use an environment to expand it, the transformation is more fully realized between that plus the mental processing, plus the movement that we use, plus biointegration techniques. So it's taking an epic adventure, because for us, life is an epic adventure. And so we're going to continue to do epic trips. We're going to be doing one in Guatemala, one in Panama. We do them in Peru. We are here to have epic adventure for anyone that would like to join.
And listen, humpback whales are the largest mammal on the planet.
On the
planet. And I can't wait to hear the sounds that they make. And being in that space, right? It is
the vibration.
Can you imagine? And you get to hang out with us, and you get to pick our brains.
And other people
really,
that are like-minded and incredible.
We already have some really amazing people, some real game changers that are coming on this excursion.
So you got lots of time to plan.
So if you're interested, there, at Tah&Kole.com, scroll down and hit that whale trip. There's not a lot of spaces, but it's going to fill up, and all our trips.
And it's nice because it's snorkeling, so you don't have to have a scuba diving certificate. The whales are at the surface, and the country of Tonga only allows 4 people in the water at a time. And on average, we'll spend about 10 minutes per day of actual interacting with the whales, because at this point, the calves are curious and the mothers are more confident. So you're talking about having 5 meters, and less of an interaction with a creature that's as curious about seeing you up close as you are. And my friend that is coordinating the trip, that's the one that's going to be taking the photography, she's a professional underwater photographer, so you'll also be captured in all of it. And she said there is no experience like hearing the calls of whales and being under the water with them. So we were like
we're in, and we're taking everybody with us that wants to go and expand.
Yeah.
Because we expand to experience, because experience expands you.
Absolutely amazing. And that sounds like a spectacular experience.
You should come.
Oh, man.
You're welcome.
I got 2 little kids and a bub about to pop any minute now. My wife is 40.
Wow. Congrats,
man.
1 week pregnant at the moment. So maybe a holiday to Tonga. It's not far from us here. It's a quick flight.
That's not far from you at all.
Sounds enticing. And anyone listening, I definitely urge them to commit to something just like that. It sounds awesome. And
we'll have lots if you join the email list. We are constantly doing things in the US and around the world to enjoy this life, because what's the point except doing it any other way?
Yeah. And if you're in the Austin area,
hit us up.
We have groups every month, very immersive experiences here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tah&Kole Whitty, thank you so much for taking your time out of your evening in Austin to join us on Amplified Wellness Podcast. It's been a pleasure. Can't wait to learn more about your journey, and maybe down the line we can have you back on to delve more into those different topics that we just touched on.
Well, thank you so much. We are so game. And anytime you need us, bro, just let us know. Thank you. It was such a pleasure to meet you at PaleoFX, and it's awesome to be in contact with you still.
Thank you so much. You have a fantastic day. And if you like this episode and you'd like to see more, make sure you subscribe to Amplified Wellness Podcast or Chris Barnes Wellness on YouTube, where you'll see this video right now with beautiful Tah&Kole Whitty. Thanks, guys.
All right, man. Peace.